Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition, and we're going to talk about the brand new Home Alone movie, Home Sweet Home Alone. Alright, let's talk about this. So, first of all, why would we even bother to talk about Home Sweet Home Alone in connection to Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition? Well, it is very much connected to Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition in that this Home Alone is a franchise, and this is a movie that exists within the franchise of the Home Alone, like, universe, right? And what's interesting is this is where we're at with Dungeons & Dragons. We have these different editions of the game, right, which kind of have an analog to additional movies within the Home Alone universe. And this question of, is this Home Alone canon, right? This doesn't have Macaulay Culkin in it. So does this count, right? And we have exactly the same questions. Like, there are people right now who are like, Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition isn't Dungeons & Dragons, which seems outrageously wrong to me, but it's not a small group. Like, it's well, it is a small group, but their voices ring loud, right? So, so basically, a lot of the questions and problems that Home Sweet Home Alone has are the exact questions that Dungeons & Dragons has. Is this canon? Is this resonance? Right? Like, it's so fascinating because I now think canon is so confusing in Dungeons & Dragons now that we need this new term called resonance, right? And it's really deep, right? So let's talk about Home Sweet Home Alone, because there's definitely some things to learn. So one, I think one of the things, and I'm definitely a part of this. I'm definitely gonna admit that I'm part of this problem. So basically, what happens is a product is announced, and there's a whiplash reaction from the Dungeons & Dragons community that the product's gonna suck. Wild Beyond the Witchlight is a perfect example of this, right? They announced Wild Beyond the Witchlight, and I'm like, this is such a waste of a book. I am so frustrated with this choice. I don't care about the Feywild. I don't want this book, right? That's it. And I went even further. I did videos on why I hated Wild Beyond the Witchlight before it was ever printed, right? Now, the reality is, I do think that Dungeons & Dragons commentators should be commentating on something the moment it's announced. But I think we need to realize that generally the reaction is, I hate this. And then the thing arrives, and here's the issue, right? What do we do as Dungeons & Dragons commentators? Do we stick our nose up in the air and go, oh, I know that's going to stink and I'm not going to watch it, right? New editions come in like, oh, 5.5 is going to suck, I'm not going to engage with it. Or do we engage with it and then just, and then say, oh, hey, I talked a whole bunch of smack about this before it released. Now it's released. And and now I'm going to give my opinion on the content as it exists now, right? So you have those issues, right? And the reality is, a whole bunch of people were like, Home Sweet Home Alone is going to suck before it came. I watched it. It's better than the original, and it is not even remotely debatable. Like, it is so much better than the original because they just watched the original. They clearly watched the original and fixed all the problems in the original, right? And it's a very compelling, very strong Christmas film, right? And I think, and I really am not happy about 5.5 coming up, and it probably has some different name, right? And but one of the things that I have to realize is, I talked a whole bunch of smack about Wild Beyond the Witchlight before it arrived, and then it arrived, and I read it and I changed my mind, right? New facts on the ground, I had a new opinion, right? So just be aware. So one, you should absolutely watch Home Sweet Home Alone. Yeah, you could frump and do all your, it's not going to be good, blah, 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 right? But the other thing is, if you ain't seen it, shut up, right? Like, you don't really know until you engage with the content and then, give your opinion, right? And there are going to be a whole lot of people who are a little like, ooh, I still think it's good as they. One, you have every right to say, I'm not going to watch that, right? But you have no right to say it's not better than I watched it. It's better than the original. You don't think it is? You don't know. You're ignorant, right? And so don't speak from ignorance. I think that's the part that is really important, right? So that's my take, right? Is make sure that you ground your frump opinions with real data once the thing is through, right? Or, right, if you don't want to do that, you're like, I'm never watching Home Sweet Home Alone. Fine. But don't don't spout your nonsense that it's not better than the original if you haven't seen it, because you're ignorant, right? So don't speak out of ignorance. Here's the next one. There's a powerful lesson we can learn from Home Sweet Home Alone for Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition, and that is raising stakes. So the original Home Alone, much worse movie than Home Sweet Home Alone, the new Disney Plus film, basically has this concept. So its concept is American kid fights American villains, American criminals. Yeah, that's a better way of putting it, right? American kid fights American criminals. Home Sweet Home Alone is British kid fights American parents who are not his parents. Very compelling. And what it specifically does is it raises the stake and immediately puts more fraught tension in the conflict by making it a British-American battle, right? A proxy battle, right? And so while it looks like a fun Christmas film, it's actually revisiting all the fraught tension of the British-American conflict. America saying, hey, we have our own thing, we have value, we don't want your rule anymore, Britain. And all of the tension between Great Britain and America is brought to life, and the stakes are raised with Home Sweet Home Alone in a way that is just really unprecedented, right? And so when you can have your player characters fight some goblins, right? But what if there's great houses from Neverwinter tied to whether they win or lose? What if the stakes are higher, right? And the conflict of your player characters is actually connecting to larger conflicts that exist within the world. It was really fantastic. All that's my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.